We are back with the Buffalonian podcast. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. And Dom, you know, we hit 3 years a little while ago. We made a joke about the weather. I do have to say, 70 degrees the day before we were recording this. Beautiful. The thunderstorms that were supposed to come but never came from 90% of the area. And 50 degrees. We had frost on the grass this morning. I'm in shambles. I'm in shorts mode at this point. You clearly are. T-shirt and shorts over there. You can't see below the waist on the camera. But had to start this one off with the weather because it's just so Western New York. It's not even funny. And guess what tomorrow's supposed to be? 70 degrees.
Really?
Yeah. Back into the 70s.
There we go.
So we rebounded. Now. We rebounded like a 40-degree difference between days. So it couldn't get more Western New York if it even tried. But the Bills, the NFL draft happened. They made 9 picks, 9 selections, and most of them were before Shedeur Sanders, which was kind of crazy. So it's pretty unbelievable. Different. Our draft board was very wrong. Compared to how, we were like, oh, the first 4 picks, they're going to be chalk picks. Then Jacksonville just completely screwed that up going up to 2 with Cleveland. And then Cleveland just ruined their draft. But what do you think overall? How do you feel after the NFL draft? Baseline for the Bills? Was it good? Are you happy with it? And I mean, we're going to go in depth in a moment here, but what do you think?
I think you and I disagree on the Browns trade. I think they swindled the Jags, to be honest. I actually think that was a good move. But
I'm not saying with the trade. I'm saying taking a 3rd-round quarterback and then a 5th-round quarterback.
Yeah,
that was not good.
But I think the Bills' draft was really solid.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's very little to complain about. Maybe they didn't draft a receiver to the 7th round, but hopefully Brandon Beane doesn't yell at us.
Hopefully he doesn't think we're bitching. Yeah. That'd be crazy.
But I think what I like about this draft is, other than the wide receiver, but it really does have a little bit of everything. And I think there's some drafts with the Bills where it's like, how are these guys really gonna help the team? Yeah. Like when they drafted Justin Shorter, it's like, is this guy gonna play gunner? Could have maybe won for a little bit better player that, but every pick it seems like there's some type of plan.
Yeah.
To have. Not just a future, get some ceiling, but, some floor of what they can actually do right now.
Exactly.
Like Hairston. Guy right now is going to compete right now for the outside cornerback. Probably the favorite to win the job.
And right? Speedy MFer. I love it. 4.28.
4.28.
Mm-hmm.
Is a guy that they believe that they could teach tackling to. Zone corner, can play a little man if needed. So
it's like the opposite of Kyer Elam, but they did jump onto the 1st round on a cornerback. History hopefully does not repeat itself here.
Yeah, people are like, oh, it's like the same as Kyer. It's like, okay.
Well, he's very different cornerback.
Very different corner, less And I think what we learned, I would say this, the board fell corner.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think there might have been opportunities for them to trade up. They didn't take it.
No. Miami takes Kenneth Grant.
Tyreek Williams goes 2 picks before them.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Harmon goes 21. It just seemed like they kind of run on interior defensive linemen that you would have been comfortable with the Bills taking a 30. And it just seemed when they got to 30, it was like, all right, there's kind of no one here that I'm comfortable in that D tackle group that I'm comfortable taking a 30, mostly corner. And obviously the Will Johnson, the knee, the long term, the toe kind of. I'm never surprised with that. I'm sorry. To me, I guess what I've learned from doing this and really following the Bills in their draft, if someone has a health question mark or a character concern,
just stay away.
Yeah. So what do you think about Hairston at 30? Were you surprised? I'm not surprised by the position, but were you surprised by the player?
The player was not really talked about all that much. The player itself was a surprise.
Oh, breaking news.
Oh God. This is never good when it's on the pod live.
Breaking news.
What's going on?
The Buffalo Bills are signing wide receiver Elijah Moore to a 1-year, $5 million.
Elijah Moore's a Buffalo Bill, everyone. Elijah Moore's a Buffalo Bill. This is crazy.
Sorry, I just saw that. I was like, oh, well, I might as well come off now.
Breaking news around the horn here.
Oh my gosh, my dad's going to drive off the road after
I know. That shouldn't be too loud. I was riding the level on that after the bleep that sent people into an embankment. But yes, so I guess.
We can talk about that after.
We'll get to that in a minute after the draft. But Elijah Moore, Buffalo Bill. Max Hairston was not the name picked. Wasn't on any mock to the Bills. The cornerback position sure was. Malachi Starks was a big conversation, right? Safety.
He goes 27.
Goes 27. He's close. You're thinking that could happen. I have no complaints about the pick. I genuinely don't. But yeah, the tackling is one thing. If you think you can teach him that, sure. You play majority of zone coverage. You sprinkled in a little more man with Bobby Babich. He seems like a cornerback that can fit that mold pretty well. He's fast. You haven't been super fast in the back in the secondary, right? Mm-hmm. You've been athletic. You've been smart. You've had good field sense. You haven't been fast. You're fast now. A 4.28 40 time. Mm-hmm. Like it's you've gotten a piece.
Different type of corner opposite.
Exactly. It's not like the safety position where you had DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp, who basically are the same type of player playing the two different positions technically. You now have two different guys who can attune to different needs on the field. So, yeah, I really like Hairston. I like that pick. And
it was
with
solid.
what was available, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, again, the board fell corner. The corners, Will Johnson, Benjamin Morrison, injury concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Trey almost kind of seemed like the guy that they would take, but he didn't get drafted till, I think, 61 to the Commanders. So, like, he kind of fell. Azrae Thomas didn't get drafted to the third round. He had that 4.58, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That
4.85.
That was really slow.
Yikes, yeah.
At the pro day, so that probably made him fall. But then, the second round, we get to day 2. It's kind of like, okay, that was the talk.
Mm-hmm.
Then they trade up. It's like, okay, like they had 56 and 62. It's like, I think the Bills may be a team now that want to trade up for an interior defensive lineman. They didn't like their value with 30, but they could like it earlier, and they get a trade partner with the Chicago Bears to trade up from 56 to 41, trade down from 62 to 72, and then all tight. They trade 109, but somehow got 109 back later in trade, but like all that. They get TJ Sanders, who's kind of more of a 3-tech, but it's kind of a guy that I think can really be disruptive, like at Oliver.
Mm-hmm. I figured I'd pull up the draft picks while we're sitting here. If you're watching on video, so you could see we have them in front of us. But
but a guy who's going to be really disruptive out of South Carolina, could really pressure the quarterback and can be solid against the run. So I think that was a really solid pick at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, who did they trade in front of? San Francisco. Because San Francisco then, I think 43 or something like that, drafts Alfred Collins, a defensive tackle out of Texas. Again, showing the Bills kind of have just a type of defensive tackle, right?
Yep.
They're not going to be a team. The Bills have shown us time and time again. Again, I already alluded to the character and the medical things. They just don't believe in having 2 down defensive tackles who can't rush the passer at all to give you no juice. They just don't believe that. And could they be wrong? Sure, but it's just what their philosophy is.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't believe, or they would have drafted Collins over Sanders. They just don't believe in having a guy that's just going to play the first 2 downs and then had to be out the field in third down. And, I do have to say, while the Bills did give up explosive runs, which is a problem, the Bills are very good on first and second down last year.
Right.
The problem for the Bills, and we saw it time and time again, was third down, even if it was 3rd and 7 or long. Like, think about that Rams game. Like, they just gave up conversion after conversion after conversion. That's where a TJ Sanders is going to help you. So I like that pick. And then to wrap up day 2, Landon Jackson.
I love that pick.
Love it. Because it was a guy that was like, people were like, oh, we'd be better at 30. And I was like, I don't know about that.
Talk about a reach.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But getting him at 72 was like, okay, like 3rd round guy that has, 6'6", kind of could be a little bit, maybe like Groot, where he comes in and maybe he's not the most polished pass rusher, but he's going to be good against the run. And that gives you a floor to play on early downs and kind of spare Joey Bosa, right? Because you have Michael Hoyt, and I know Joey's a defensive tackle, but those guys are going to be out for the first 6 games. So it's kind of a guy that could come in and play a little bit, play on the early down, the run downs to give Bosa's legs fresh, have a nice kind of, listen, the Bills may not really love 2 down defensive tackles. They love edges that can set the edge.
Yes, setting the edge was a problem last season as well. They struck that Seattle game, I think, back to the first part of that game and the first part of the Colts game. Setting the edge was a huge need for the Bills. Landon Jackson, I love it. Also, his character, guy's already married, right? Like he seems to have himself figured out. He's taken the number of a guy that had some off-field issues. I don't think we'll have any with him as far as I can tell, looking at his personality right now. Not to jump to conclusions like that, but I really like the pick. And yeah, there's that infamous video of him slapping the dummies, right? Before he put all the muscle on. Have you seen the most recent one where he's all beefed up and working on it?
Yeah, I think that was at the combine.
Yeah, he looks, better than the first time around. So I really like that pick at 72. I think that was a great pick.
And again, to me, they had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think on day 2, I really do. I think they had a plan of, day 1, the board. We could have been aggressive. Didn't love the options of trading up. Stay there. Pick the corner. That's the best player on our board.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, okay, day 2, let's be aggressive. Let's trade up in front of San Francisco, who we think could draft. They did draft him 43rd overall. I looked it up.
Yeah.
Collins. Let's be aggressive. Trade up in front of them. Get the defensive tackle in that tier that we didn't quite think were good enough to be 30, but good enough to be traded up for.
Mm-hmm.
And at 72, this is where I guess the wide receiver conversation comes in, is that Landon Jackson probably was just their best player on the board.
Yeah.
And it was on the edge, and it was a position that's like, hey, we could need another defensive edge. And then you go into day 3, and they immediately trade to get 109 back. Crazy.
This guy I love, by the way.
But Deion Walker, who's a guy that could have been a first-round pick if he was draft eligible last year, had the back injury, so that's a concern.
It is a little bit of a concern.
That's an absolute concern, but this is a big boy. Again, though,
345 playing weight, by the way.
Important to note, though, he's really not a one-tech. He's more of a pass-rushing D tackle. So that's another, and more of a guy who's going to power and be a run could run stuff, but not a one-tech.
Exactly. They want to rush with 4. They don't want to blitz, and those are the guys they're picking up. And as Daquan Jones insurance, right, to fill that void of the bigger guy on the line, I love it.
He doesn't quite play like that, which is a
little
concerning.
But size-wise, that's what you need.
Yeah, no.
You couldn't get another Ed Oliver size guy to fill that role. You needed a big boy. He's 331 at the combine, right?
Yeah.
He in his introductory press conference, he's like, "Yeah, my playing weight's 345." I'm like, "This guy's a tank. This is awesome." Couldn't have asked for. I like that pick a lot. Out of Kentucky, the Kentucky Bills, Max Hairston, and apparently he was jumping on the table for Deion as well. So you got a Deion on offense and a Deion on defense now.
And again, I think you kind of break it down the draft from the first 4 picks compared to the next 5, because the next 5 are more backups, especially in Sawyers. But the first 4, okay, you could see all 4 of these guys making legit impact on defense.
Yep, because defense is rotational on the Bills. They'll play.
And then the cornerback you think you could be the starter. When you go into the rest of the day 5 picks, Jordan Hancock at 170, Jackson Hawes at 173, Dorian Strong, Chase Ludd, and Caden Prather. All those guys, I think what people forget is that the Bills, I don't know how it's hard to forget this part, that the Bills' special teams were terrible last year.
They were disgustingly terrible.
Terrible. And they rightfully fired Matt Smiley and brought in a new special teams coordinator.
They're starting fresh on special teams.
But I think people forget, that guy probably has some say on day 3 of, hey, I really, Jackson Haas played a lot of special teams at tight end when he was for Tech. That could be a guy that's going to play special teams for you. Replace Quentin Morris to be your 3rd tight end. Be the blocking tight end because he's the best blocking tight end in the class. Yep. You didn't need a receiving tight end. You needed a 3rd guy that was going to do some dirty work that could play special teams. And hey, you run a lot of 6 offensive linemen with Alec Anderson. Yep. Hear me out. What if we just replace Alec Anderson with a tight end who can do pretty much the same thing, pretty good blocker, but can also maybe run a route?
Yep.
Right? And you see that with Haas, and I think Ludd is the perfect Aaron Cromer guy, right? Tall guy, tall tackle, doesn't have the arm length, going to go in, probably kick inside, going to be a project, perfect Aaron Cromer guy. And then the remaining picks, Prothers, speed, kind of whatever, probably not going to make the team, to be honest. But Strong, again, and Hancock. I think this is important to understand. Because everyone was like, oh my God, when people were complaining about the receiver, we drafted 3 cornerbacks. Yes, but only 2, Hairston, cornerback 2,
yep.
Dorian Strong is an outside corner, really good zone, was really good at zone. Bills play a lot of zone. And it's okay, that guy's there. That pick is there. And people are like, oh my God, it is Elam to Benford. But that pick is there to push.
It is Elam to
Benford. that guy, though, is there to push Jamarcus Ingram, Dane Jackson, Trey White as the maybe primary backup, right? And
I think one of the veterans that came back don't make the roster,
and probably because I don't remember if Dane played special teams, but I don't think he did. And I know Trey White doesn't.
Trey White could very well not make the Bills' final roster.
I mean, he can make it, but he might be a healthy scratch more than you think because he doesn't play special teams. Yeah. This kid probably will. And then Jordan Hancock again. A third corner, a corner. Yes, but he's more of a slot corner and a safety, which is kind of a different position than an outside corner, right? He's going to give you maybe some insurance in case Terry Johnson goes down. push Cam Lewis for his role, special teams, be that backup safety too. So
yes,
I really like the draft. I think this is again,
it's one of the better drafts since doing the pod.
CBS had it as the number one class. I think a lot of people have it in the B+ A- range. I think it's just a class where it's not hard to see instant impact.
Right.
And there's opportunity for these. And they also drafted guys that I think have some ceiling. Like if Maxwell Hairston hits, I was saying this to a buddy, he signed 4 years plus the 5th-year option. Christian Benford has 1 year left on his deal and a 4-year extension. That's a half decade. You have your 2 outside cornerbacks.
And they can play together. They're going to have a system. It's perfect. It couldn't have gone better.
Yep. And then, then you have these defensive linemen, and it's okay, we have AJ Epinesa, 1 year deal left. 1 year left, I should say. Not 1 year deal because he signed 2 years a year ago, but 1 year left on his contract. Daquan Jones, 1 year left on his contract. You signed 2 other 1 year deals in Ogunjobi and Joey Bosa. There has to be some type of long-term, this is a long-term plan now.
Mm-hmm. You drafted young
at D line when you have guys where it's and you still have Dwayne Carter, which the jury's still out on. So it's not we go into it and it's we only have Groot, Ed Oliver, right? Because remember, one of the offseasons ago, it was
just those guys.
Literally pretty much those guys.
Yeah.
It's this is pretty bleak.
Mm-hmm. It's not great.
They've been able to rebuild the D line.
Yeah.
And you still have Javon Solomon who could put some stuff. So it's going to be tough. I mean, I think we're going to see, to be honest, a lot of trades at cut day from these Bills D linemen to other teams. I think that's what's going to really happen.
And they have a plethora of offensive linemen. You drafted another solid tackle, right?
He might they might try and sneak him on the practice squad.
They might try and sneak him on the practice squad, but also a team looking for a young tackle. He's
more of a guard. He's guard, but yeah, absolutely.
You have value at that position. The Hawes pick, Jackson, Reggie Gilliam insurance. With the blocking, too.
Yeah, could maybe play a little fullback.
I think he could play a little fullback and do that position. I really do. I think he's a little multifaceted in the blocking game, and you didn't have a true blocking tight end. How many times did we sit here and say Dawson Knox terrible at blocking, and Kincaid
Kincaid's bad at blocking, Knox is average.
Right.
You don't have a guy that's actually
But there were some reactions to games what the hell? What was that? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got insurance for that now. You have a tight end you can put out there, and like you said, he can run a route or two, a short route for a first down. He's a big boy.
Again, I think all these day 3 guys, it's all right, this guy could potentially be an upgrade. I mean, he's not a day 3 pick, but it's okay, this all makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense why they drafted another corner who's an outside corner. It makes sense why they wanted to draft a nickelback safety, right, for depth. And it makes sense why they wanted a third tight end.
Yeah.
Cromer gets his little thing. Prather kind of, maybe they, that's what I'll say this. At that point in the 7th round, it's drafting whoever you think you want the most, who if you want to make sure you get them. At that point in the 7th round, people are making calls to agents about unrestricted
free agents.
Undrafted free agents.
Shiloh Sanders goes to the Bucks, stuff like that.
At that point in the 7th round, agents are already getting calls from teams hey, and you know what I'm going to be interested about, and this is probably not true. Kind of going to the Elijah Moore thing. We did see what was it? 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, when the Bills didn't take a running back, right, and they only had James Cook at the time. They didn't even have Ty Johnson because Ty Johnson was a waiver pickup.
Ty Johnson was a waiver.
But remember that the weekend after they signed Latavius Murray, and Beane was we were on the phone with his agent, with Latavius Murray's agent, and we're we won't draft a day 3 guy, but we're going to bring you in. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that happened here, but
they had him in before. They had him in before the draft, a few days before the draft.
More? I think did they?
Yeah, they had him in a few days before the draft.
I forgot about that.
And then I assume
they had him.
He was the backup.
They had him Monday, so I assume maybe again,
if they didn't draft a wide receiver, he was going to be who they were going to.
If their board didn't fall receiver, which it didn't fall receiver because he said that, and obviously they didn't take one. So
yes, and speaking of that, this will tie in with the Elijah Moore thing. I don't normally talk about my workplace situation on here, but there was an explosive moment that has gone quite viral on the morning show, the morning drive on WGR 550, where Brandon Beane comes in hot, absolutely hot, about some criticism of not drafting a receiver, and it was less criticism and more just question on why, what happened, and Brandon Beane took it a little personally, and he listen. Sounds like it was pent up. 2018 came out all of a sudden, the Josh Allen thing, right? And Josh Rosen. Sounds like, the pictures of the glaciers where it's like all at the bottom and just a little bit of the top.
Yeah.
That question about why not draft a receiver was at the top, but everything else was just boiled down at the bottom, and everything just erupted like a volcano. And now Elijah Moore is a Buffalo Bill. So they clearly had a plan. The board didn't follow the way they wanted to go wide receiver, and I agree it didn't. Hairston versus a wide receiver at pick 30, there weren't any receivers that were jumping off the page.
Well, I mean, people might like Luther Burn, but at that point, again, was he so, like, it's not like Malachi Starks, but he would have been so much the best player on the board.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take him.
No.
And then be like, oh, on day 2, we had to draft a corner and a defensive tackle. Like, what would have happened at that point?
Yeah. I think there was a good enough wide receiver market post-draft where they thought they would be able to make something happen.
Yeah, I think it's also a situation that they just didn't like the depth of this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's what comes down to. This wasn't a really deep receiver draft, which is kind of most analysts would agree with. So,
yeah.
Again, for the Bills, too, it's like, where would have a rookie have played other than wide receiver 5?
Yeah.
And again, it's a little bit same with like Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore actually is a pretty good player, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hype him up too much. Like,
25 years old, 200 catches, nearly 2,200 yards and 10 touchdowns during his first 4 seasons, and that was on a Cleveland team that's been...
And a Jets team.
And a Jets team, you're right. Cleveland and Jets team who have both been just mediocre.
I mean, he's always had good separation numbers. He's just never had the production, and some of that might just be because of him, but some of that also might be because of
the franchises he's
been on. The quarterback play has been pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I think it's intriguing. I think, listen, who are you going to supplant? Like, they obviously believe in Keon Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
Khalil
Shakir.
They just signed Khalil Shakir to a $50 million contract. They just gave $36 million to Josh Palmer, so that's really 3 guys, right? They gave a pretty big deal to Curtis Samuel. They believe in his ability, right? He got banged up and whatever, so that's 4.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like,
is he? Yeah.
Your wide receiver 5 is usually a special teamer, and it's like,
what do you do at this point?
What do you do? And I guess maybe to me, like, is Elijah Moore really a, kind of in there to compete with Curtis Samuel? Maybe
he might be,
like, to kind of push him, and if Curtis Samuel has another bad camp, maybe,
see if Allen can elevate more and see how that works.
I think you can talk about that, but yeah, receiver, it's just hard because it's like, which receiver in this draft, other than if you wouldn't have drafted Hairston or you wouldn't have drafted the defensive tackle T.D. Sanders, like, and everyone likes those picks. So it's like, by the point you drafted Landon Jackson, it's like, who would have made the team
in the 4th round?
That not made. I shouldn't say make the team because you would expect them to make the team as like the 5th receiver, but
but who would break that ceiling? Who would of break the 5th receiver?
Yes.
Like, there's nobody on the board that would have done.
Who would break the ceiling of? And listen, Josh Palmer is kind of a jag. I'm not gonna lie, but like,
yeah,
he has good separation numbers, and he's been a solid outside receiver. So, yeah, just
would you compare him to Gabe Davis a little bit? A touch. They're similar. Not as large as Gabe Davis, right? I don't think so.
They're different players, but sure,
similar role on the team. Right?
Okay, well, like, I think they're complete. I should say this. I think they're completely different players. Are they a little like just kind of your average? Are they average? Sure. Are they different players? Absolutely, because Gabe Davis was not nearly the route runner, or
no, he just kind of ran straight down the field.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, Josh Palmer is more of a route runner and separation. Gabe maybe a little bit better at deep speed, deep route. Yeah, but yeah, I think again, that's why it was so hard with receiver. It's like, who are you actually picking? And it's like, this wasn't an option. Again, that's why I was like, I kind of could understand. I could understand Beane's frustration a little bit, being like, guys, like, because it's like, to me, from Beane's perspective, it's like, I already had to go through multiple questions about this yesterday about the same topic, right? So my thoughts on it, and it's like,
we're still doing this.
And it's like, I can understand, though, obviously the radio people, because it's like they have a job to do, and
it is an opinion-based
program. It's an opinion-based program.
Yeah, so it's like,
But then I agree that he could have an opinion. I'll say this.
Could have disagreed with the opinion.
He could have disagreed with the opinion in a more professional way.
Yeah.
Because using the word,
yeah, you guys are bitching. We'll just say
4 times was not probably appropriate, but
he cooled off.
He could have been like, hey, like the board, like again, I can understand why he didn't go this route, because he probably was annoyed that he had to go this route again of doing like the political answer of the board didn't fall.
You can only say the board didn't fall so many times while keeping your sanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, though, I'm very happy with the way the board fell. I like the Elijah Moore edition simply because
it's a body.
It's a body, and with less than mediocre teams, he's been all right.
Low risk.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he doesn't work out.
And
it's not like you expect him to do anything. It's a high ceiling too. Once if he comes out, if Elijah Moore comes and is kind of like a solid contributor, like kind of just maybe doesn't put up big numbers, but puts up 500 receiving yards.
Right. Like he's a contributor to another everybody eats kind of a season, and that's that. They still are able to.
They obviously saw something too because listen, he played with the Jets, so they played against them
twice a year. And
this isn't like Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool to me. Like sometimes, like you know how like. Maybe you know what? I guess a better example is just like kind of MVS.
Exactly. That's like, a better example.
Like MVS kind of came in and was like, all right, like
he got injured, didn't he? Or was he just bad and they cut
a little bit of both? I think.
Yeah,
a lot of bad, but like, but you know what I'm saying? It was like a low risk. Like okay, he just kind of sucked. Okay, we'll just cut him and whatever he did, whatever you want to do. And the Saints, I think he's with the Seahawks now. But like, if Moore comes in and just kind of like trash, like okay. We'll cut you, whatever. We'll eat the cap. But like, if he comes in and really plays well, it's like okay, like we got another guy that can play. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you get to play Josh Allen. Like, come on now.
Right. And honestly, we've seen it. Allen elevates the talent around him. So putting him in Josh Allen's system, you might see him pop a pretty solid season. So
exactly. I think it's a situation too where it's like, I'm cool. So far with we don't really need a one because we have Josh and he can make it work. I will say as Josh ages
over time
we're gonna have to change that.
But, because he's also not going to be hurtling and plowing through all of that.
That's 5 years away.
Yeah, you got plenty of time. But one last thing about the draft. I mentioned it. I made a joke about it. Shedeur Sanders, right? The way the Browns picked him. And then we have some Bandits talk because we got a playoff run happening in KeyBank Center. That's not the hockey team. So we gotta bring those guys into the limelight a little bit. I understand his fall. I do. In my mind, looking at him, it's a similar this might sound a little egregious when I say it. Just let me explain it. Best comparison for him, Mac Jones. Out of the quarterbacks in the draft, right? His floor is higher year one than these other guys. But his ceiling is not nearly as high as these other guys when they're coached. I'm not talking Will Howard, like late round draft pick. I'm talking like Dart, like those guys in the beginning.
Shuck.
Yeah. He's just Mac Jones in my mind. And I think that's why he was passed on. I know he tanked interviews. I know that happened. But I think you look at him and you're like, okay, high floor for the first couple seasons, but these guys, when coached, could overtake his ceiling. Absolutely. Like that's kind of what I look at.
He could be like a nice backup, and if he needs to start in a certain like Shanahan offense,
exactly,
he could be productive.
Yeah,
I think it's really as simple as this. And it's a little frustrating because it's like this is a very easy conversation to have.
And it was the only conversation for a couple days.
But it's like they were all like missing the point. He didn't get drafted the first round simply because he was not a first round caliber player.
No.
And like NFL teams didn't view him as a first round caliber player, so he didn't get picked as one. Jackson Dart got picked as one because the Giants saw a ceiling, as you said, and think he could be a first round caliber player. Maybe not now, but in the future.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason he can get picked in the first round or the beginning of the second round is because maybe the NFL just simply had him as a late round 2, early round 3 guy. Fine. The reason why he didn't get drafted until the middle of day 3, like that was a fine fall. The minute he didn't get drafted in like the second round and started to fall past the early third and into the fifth, and we start. Then he
plummeted into the canyon.
Like Dart, Shuck, fine, whatever. But like once we started getting Milrow, it's like okay,
yeah,
that's a little.
And Will Howard soon after him.
Well, he didn't get drafted before. He got drafted before Will Howard.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying in proximity, Will Howard was the closer quarterback.
Once Dylan Gabriel got taken at the end of the third round, which is a terrible pick by the Browns, then it was like, whoa,
yeah,
like I don't know, like this is ridiculous now. And then it was pretty obvious. Like at that point, he was falling because he tanked interviews.
Brian Daboll, that came out. Yeah. Apparently, the Giants interview was bad.
He tanked interviews, didn't have the best attitude. His dad's a wild card. Like, I'm sorry, like you're gonna hold that against him. And at the end of the day, like at that point, you're drafting for a backup quarterback. You don't want your backup quarterback to be Shedeur Sanders. And when the starting quarterback starts to suck a little bit, and you aren't winning,
Dion gets on your
Dion starts tweeting, "Oh, I can't believe he's not playing," or whatever. Like, and then it's a massive distraction. So that, and then I also end with this. He got drafted because Jimmy Haslam, the owner, told them the Browns to draft him.
Yeah,
like there's no.
Did you see the enthusiasm on all their faces?
There's no way.
There's
no way the Browns, if you took Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski in their room and put a gun to their head and said, "Did you actually want Shedeur Sanders?" and they have a polygraph, they would say hell no. But they had to because the owner writes checks. So I don't know. I think it gets a little overblown, and I think they misplayed their hand because at the end of the day, Shedeur was a second-round player.
Should have taken him where you took Gabriel. Yeah, that should have been it.
Well, he was a second-round player, and if his party would have acted accordingly like he was a second-round player, he could have got traded up for in the first round to get the fifth-year option or whatever. But they act like he was a top 5 pick. Oh, we're going to choose where we're going to go and all this, and tanked interviews supposedly, and probably it's all true. I mean, probably most of that is true. So,
and the reason, I don't know. You look at it. The reason he was so high up, this quarterback class was terrible in actuality.
Well,
minus a couple.
I'll say this too. NFL teams just gotten smarter.
Yes,
because they also learn from their mistakes of don't reach for quarterbacks. And also, I'll say this: bad news for Shedeur. He was a pretty high consensus on the consensus board and fell, and he's one of the I think he's the number one all time, where he was in the consensus board to where he was actually picked fall for a quarterback. Of the top 20, the only person who was worth the crap is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Out of any of the quarterback, the top 20 quarterbacks who have fallen in the draft, where they end up getting taken, they were all busts. They all didn't work out. So the NFL teams obviously knew that those guys should not be as high on the board. So I don't know. We'll see if Shedeur. He could work out, but the odds really aren't in his favor.
Look at their quarterback room. Flacco.
They traded a 5th-round pick for Kenny Pickett.
Yes.
What are we doing?
Pickett, Flacco. Oh my God.
Poor Joe Flacco, man.
Joe Flacco's Dion's age.
Yeah. Not quite, but poor
right around there.
Poor Joe Flacco, man. Dude just wants to play some ball. Had to deal with the whole Anthony Richardson tapping out and that thing, and now he has to deal
tired.
Now he has to deal with the Gabriel Shedeur and Kenny Pickett.
He's just in the middle of a brawl.
I just want this to be said. Can Myles Garrett just come out and say, "Yeah, I just signed that contract for the money"? How he said, he signed the contract. Was I believe in the quarterback plan for the Browns. Please, the quarterback plans for the Browns: trade for Kenny Pickett, sign Joe Flacco, draft Dylan Gabriel, draft Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. Come on, you weren't about that. And Deshaun happens to re-tear his Achilles, and now it's going to be after. You're come on. You just say you were okay, they gave me a blank check for $160 million and I took it. I think people would be okay, dude, honestly, I'm sorry, as much as how competitive people want to be in those situations, I'm not turning down that money. What the heck? No.
Yeah.
So, can you just admit that? Come on now.
Yeah. But
there's no way he wants this quarterback to be any of these options.
No. It was all for the money. But I had to comment on Shedeur because that was a big story in the national media this past week, and
not as big as Beane, but
not as big. No, our local interest took over after a couple days, but Stephen A. Smith on General Hospital as well. I don't know if you saw that recently.
I got to talk to my grandma about that.
Yeah,
she's a big GH
he pulled out a
fan.
silencer like James Bond. All
yeah,
of a sudden. I was what?
Yeah. Every time between 2 and 3, you know what she's doing. So I'm gonna phone her and ask what she thought.
See what's going on with Stephen A. Smith.
What she give the performance.
He's been on before.
Yeah, I know.
So
I did know that.
He's a multi-appearance guy. Also, apparently, not to get political here for our one friend Phil Thomas, but he's on some News Nation thing for Trump's 100 Days tonight as a pundit talking with Bill O'Reilly. We'll do it live.
He's
What is going on there? And Chris Cuomo, geez, but just
what a group,
an interesting cast of characters there. But the Bandits,
what a moment!
What a moment! Matt Vince steps up, plays for the fellas. Bandits get a home playoff series to start. Second game is elsewhere, but they start at home Friday.
Massive advantage.
Yep.
Did you see the massive advantage they have?
No. I thought you meant that's
no.
I thought you said that's
talking
the
about
advantage.
the game first. Talking about the first. That is an advantage.
But the first game, I was working the NFL draft, so you gotta fill me in here.
Well, I was working the.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Neither of us were in attendance, but
we did have the attendance, and Matt Vince played out of his butt. Nearly had 50 saves, 5-4 win. They didn't score at all in the second half. They scored the game-winning goal with 0.2 seconds or 0.1 seconds left in the first half to go up 5-2. and then they gave up a goal with like a second left in the game. So it's kind of crazy to think that like from that time to the end, pretty much the end of the game, there was pretty much one goal scored.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is wild to think about.
Yep.
Like if you'd have told someone, yeah, the Bandits don't score in the second half, you probably said, okay, they lose.
Yeah.
If you would have told someone, yeah, the Bandits they score 5 goals in the first half and they don't score another one, it's like, all right, well, 5 is
and they hang on to that.
Yeah, what's the lowest scoring game ever?
Yeah.
I mean, you would literally have said, you'd have looked up, wow, it's anyone want that, and it would have been like a 6-5 win. But like, oh nope, so no, they're gonna lose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that is just an insane performance from Matt Vince. I gotta say, we were questioning him a little bit. You know,
We were.
We've
texted on here. We've questioned him.
We were hating a little bit, and he shut us up, man. I mean, he came through. I still think, in my opinion, the rest of the team still sleepwalking a little bit. Josh Byrne a little banged up, but he should be good. But that was
Nanico coming off an injury as well.
But good thing is though, now they have to beat the Bisons. They have to beat the Bandits twice, and one of them has to be in Banditland. So
yep, exactly. And the good thing about any of the playoff series, you don't have Rochester, you don't have Albany, so there's no back-to-back potential. These are all teams that are elsewhere in the country, a little further away, so they're going to be spread out a couple days or a day in between. So like Friday, next game Sunday, then the game after that, if it's game 3, is Friday, right? So it's like, because Albany last year, remember, they were in like ice baths on the bus. They were getting stretched out. Like they were doing their recovery on the bus ride back to Buffalo from Albany. Like they don't have to worry about that this year, as far as I'm concerned. At least I think so. Yeah.
But very interesting. All the top 4 seeds won. But yeah, there's a massive advantage for the Bandits, though. Massive advantage for the Bandits. So they played the Vancouver Warriors obviously this Friday coming up in Buffalo for game 1. And then game 2 is Sunday. The big advantage that the Bandits have is that the other series, Saskatchewan and Halifax, I believe it's Halifax. I gotta look that up.
I think it is Halifax.
I'll double check that. But they play their first game on Saturday, and then they play game 2 next weekend, and then game 3.
Yeah.
So like, there's a massive opportunity here for the Bandits that they sweep Vancouver to be done for this weekend, and then
have a long recovery time.
You know, even. It doesn't matter about the other series because they're going to have a week up, right? And maybe you'll be like, okay, well, it's great to have rest, but like maybe it's like one of those situations where you're off too long, and that it is Halifax. Yeah, so they play Halifax and Saskatchewan. They play Saturday, May 3rd, and then they play Saturday, May 10th, and Sunday, May 11th. Game 3 for the Vancouver and Buffalo, if necessary, would be Saturday, May 10th. So like, even in that scenario, you go to 3 games. If they go to 3 games, you get another day. You get a day rest or a couple hours if they sweep. So
yeah,
the winner of that series sweeps. So yeah, I think it's a great advantage for the Bandits. 3 Canadian teams against Buffalo. So very very fascinating kind of mix there. But yeah, probably gonna get another sellout. Man, again, then the NLL had to come off a comment about it. Be like, hey, like we have TV deals, like. This is why the schedule is what it is because people were complaining, and I think they have a right to complain. I mean, I'll be honest, as a Bandit supporter, like
an opposing team,
even Vancouver has to be like, oh man, like if somehow we like beat the Bandits twice like in a row, like this is a massive leg up.
You have a leg up on the competition, absolutely.
And the Bandits have home field, so if they win, if they sweep, it's like all right, like we know the next game is going to be
in Banditland.
I think it's like going to be like May 17th maybe or something. I don't remember the schedule.
I will say. All of their buys were in the beginning of their season, pretty much. So it's been a while since they've had an extended rest. That might do them well.
Yeah, they need this.
So that would be good. That'd be good to just reset for a little bit. So
big time though, big time.
Luck. Could they three-peat? That could be crazy.
I mean, that's pretty important. You know, three-peating is hard, and we saw the Chiefs fail. You know,
yeah.
Usually in dynasty football leagues, if you three-peat, you get like a side pot of a lot of money. So,
I would love to see a three-peat in Buffalo, though, especially in that building. Raise another banner, maybe kick the Sabres in the ass and figure out a way to get them a banner up there because it's been a minute since it's been a championship. Yeah, I mean, the RJ banner, the Ryan Miller banner, sure, but we have not seen a I guess on ice product banner in a long time. But go Bandits! I'm rooting for them on Friday. I'll be in attendance. I don't know. Will you?
Maybe. I haven't thought about that. It is kind of crazy. It's 2 days away.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. But
you got me there.
Yeah. But that's going to do it, I think. Anything else you want to toss in here at the end?
No, just well, I guess I'll make one disclaimer. We didn't talk any Sabres because apparently they had their meeting on Sunday.
Yeah.
Kevin Adams and Terry Bugula, but we haven't heard anything. But
I'm still sporting the merch.
Hopefully next week,
We'll have something.
we get a little something. And
Yeah.
then, do you want to say something about May 14th?
Yeah, May 14th. If you were watching the first night of the NFL draft, you'll know there was an announcement for the announcement that took an excessively long time. For the NFL schedule release, we're going to do a little live stream. Maybe get Statistician Ginge and those fellas involved.
Yeah, I gotta get my brother Patrick on. He's been itching to come on.
He's been itching.
He wants to do the theme songs.
The NFL. Maybe we'll do that next week while we're waiting, or 2 weeks. Maybe we'll do that in 2 weeks while we're waiting. A little schedule release watch party, if you will. So
yeah. I got one more thing.
Okay,
I forgot to bring this up.
Yes. What's it on? What are we talking about?
NFL.
Okay.
Forgot the Bills got announced as one of the rivalry teams.
We're going to get the new jerseys.
So
yes,
we can talk more about this next week.
Yeah,
once we hopefully get more information. But yeah, the AFC East and I think it was the NFC West got announced as the 8 teams selected by the NFL to have rivalry jerseys created by Nike, and you get to wear it. They're going to wear it once this coming year against either Miami, a division rival, so Miami.
I would assume it's Miami or New England.
Well, I mean, it's a 1 in 3 chance.
If it's New England, is it the Navy Blues from 2000?
Well, see, I'm interested in. My dad asked this question too. Is it a home and away, or is it just you expect the away team to wear white? You know
I'm copping the jersey, by the
way. I assume the away team just wearing white, and then you just wear it one time. But they said it's in rotation for 3 years afterwards. So. I don't know if it's 3 years or it's 4 years because it's like you count it as one of the years, but
it's got to be Bills Dolphins, right? It's got to be New England Bills. New England. See,
that's
another
confusing thing for me, though. I was about to say is that does that mean when we play Miami they're going to have theirs, or if we you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so you only wear it once a season.
You only wear it once.
Miami.
Let's see. You wear it once. It's against a division rival. So my question is, obviously. One time the Bills are going to play a team. Obviously, it just makes sense math-wise that the Bills had to play.
It's probably your home stadium. You wear it. The away team just wears their away jersey.
The whites.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, would it just make sense for them to flip it? You know what I'm saying? If we go to Miami and they wear theirs, and then when Miami comes here, we wear ours.
Yeah.
Right? But then I think it gets confusing if it's we wear ours against Miami, but then we play the Jets when they wear, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they do that. Or you have but I don't know.
They should just do it both ways. They should have both. Home and away, because they're
because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense too. It has to work out that way because it doesn't make sense for us to we wear it against Miami, but then somehow we're playing the Jets and the Pats when they're wearing theirs. You know what I'm saying? It has to be I don't know.
You should just. Here's the thing, and I think this could
maybe we're going too deep.
Maybe we're going too deep, and maybe we're going to talk more about it next week.
We're at the end of the pod.
We're at the end of the pod, but maybe we're going to talk more about it next week. But it should just be when you play someone in your division, you should just wear your throwbacks or your rivalry jersey. I just think that's how it should be.
My dad doesn't like it.
Why?
He thinks it's a money grab, which it
100% is. But I'm going to get a jersey. I literally just said I'm going to buy a jersey.
Now my question is this: are you going to get a CJ Spiller one?
I already have. If it's the navy blue, I already have a navy blue CJ Spiller 21 too. So
I'm interested in what they're going to do. I hope I'm praying it's the 90s. Praying. I don't want navy blue. I'm so out.
No, because if Nike's doing it realistically, you're going to look too similar to a Patriots jersey. It's not going to be the sheeny, Reebok look.
If it's navy blue,
it's not going to be that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were making the case for navy blue. I was like, you just made the case opposite of what.
No.
I thought you were arguing for navy blue.
I'm arguing it's going to look. If it's the Nike style, it's going to look way too similar to a Patriots jersey.
I agree.
But
unless I was saying to my dad, maybe they do the Patriots are red.
Oh God. Maybe they didn't wear those at the same time.
Maybe they did the Patriots are red. Well, it doesn't matter. It's their own. It's the franchise rivalry. So maybe
the 90s, though, they might be it's too similar to the current one. They might be navy blue with a red helmet. Oh, okay, I think that might mean the red helmets though.
Am I saying this? Am I feeling wrong when they dropped the ball by not announcing this and having the jersey ready?
They should have had at least a one team's jersey is the.
No, they should have had they should have had
the lineup.
They should have announced it, and they should have had 8 mannequins with the jersey on it.
You're absolutely right.
Why didn't they do that?
When are they? No, it's because they want to make it a 12-month business. That's why.
Yeah, you know what? They want to make an announcement of the announcement.
Yeah. It's
an announcement of the things, but then they're going to make an announcement of the actual jerseys.
Like the schedule release.
Yes,
the announcement of the announcement to elongate.
But that's why the NFL's king is. We're talking about it on April 30th about this topic.
And I'm going to buy a jersey. Yeah. So they have my money and my time.
Yeah.
Money for nothing by the Dire Straits. Is that song appropriate in today's day and age? I don't know. That's a different conversation, though. That's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali. As always, I'm joined by none other than Dom Loss. And Dom, how do we always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.